You know, it seems to me that Fire Emblem is experiencing a reinvigoration that the series has never experienced before. In fact, prior to the release of Fire Emblem Awakening, the series was experiencing a progressive decline in sales, so much so that Fire Emblem Awakening was supposed to be the last Fire Emblem game ever unless it did well in the market.
And it has. Fire Emblem Awakening just destroyed all expectations with close to 2 million copies sold worldwide. But there are many others who haven't enjoyed Fire Emblem. So what exactly is Fire Emblem?
I'm a huge Fire Emblem fan, so I thought it would seem appropriate to bring along another Fire Emblem fan, my good old battle buddy Zeshix.
And it's good to be here. So what exactly is Fire Emblem IF? Well, to begin with, Fire Emblem is a turn-based strategy game in which the player is in control of his or her own military force. The player has control over a variety of different units, for example, knights, archers, warriors, and so on. Each unit has their own unique advantages and disadvantages.
These units can level up through battle, and once they reach a certain level, they can be promoted to obtain higher stats. At its core, these mechanics are the very basics of Fire Emblem, but leading a military campaign also supplements the story, which is what a lot of people are drawn into.
The latest game in the series, Fire Emblem IF, was first announced on January's Nintendo Direct. Early on, Nintendo head Satoru Iwata has stated that player choice within the game will have an effect on player progression.
The emphasis on player choice was further supplemented by the second trailer given in the April's Nintendo Direct. In this trailer, two warring factions known as Hoshido and Nor are showcased. One interesting aspect to point out about both factions is that Hoshido appears to be derived from Japanese culture, while Nor appears to be European.
This East versus West conflict is essentially the backdrop of the game. The player is caught in between the war between these two warring factions, and eventually the player has to pick which one to support.
And that's all backstory. Iwata said in the previous direct that player choice will be a premium in the latest Fire Emblem title, and seeing the latest trailer just supplements that end. So are you Team Nor or Team Hoshido?
Also, Famitsu recently confirmed some new gameplay details of Fire Emblem IF. Apparently there will be a class change option. For example, the character in the game Felicia can be reclassed to a Brave Knight, a Hero, or a Strategist. Additionally, there will be multiple promotion options. These mechanics appeared in Fire Emblem Awakening, and it also reminds me of the old Shadow Dragon days.
For example, for units there is an unpromoted class and a promoted class. An unpromoted class can become promoted through leveling up. For example, an archer through leveling up and using a master seal can become a sniper, which in turn has higher stats. However, in Fire Emblem IF, the item known as a parallel seal can do something really neat.
With a parallel seal, an unpromoted unit can switch between unpromoted classes. For example, this archer of ours can become an entirely different unit, such as a cavalier.
Also, it seems to us that the basic mechanics found in traditional Fire Emblem games are going to be tweaked. For example, the almighty weapon triangle is going to be modified. Instead of the traditional swords beat axes, axes beat lances, and lances beat swords approach, in this latest entry, swords and magic beat axes and bows, axes and bows beat spears and dark weapons, and spears and dark weapons beat swords and magic. And wow, that wasn't a mouthful.
And that's not all, folks. Fire Emblem IF will include a mode basically engineered for newcomers to the series. This mode is called Phoenix Mode. In this mode, even if your units die in the line of battle, they can be revived on the next turn.
Also, another neat thing that Fire Emblem IF will reintroduce is modifying skills. There are two distinct types of skills, inherent skills and class skills. Inherent skills are dependent on the individual unit, while class skills can be learned by leveling up the unit.
Similar to Fire Emblem Awakening, each unit can use 6 skills and can interchange them at any point. One thing I want to point out is that Fire Emblem IF is doing something radical, abolishing weapon durability.
Traditionally, in most Fire Emblem games, most weapons have durability. If the durability runs out, then the weapon can no longer be used. This design choice has only been seen previously in Fire Emblem Gaiden. In summary, the developers really want players to think about weapon choice and their stats.
Nor and Hoshido have access to different sets of weapons. To modifying the weapon triangle and giving a greater emphasis on weapon choice, the developers really want Fire Emblem IF to be much more strategic, at least when it comes to weaponry.
Fire Emblem IF is set to be released in Japan in June 25th, which is actually actually pretty close. However, a North American and European release is set sometime in 2016. In Japan, 2 versions of Fire Emblem IF will be released. These 2 versions are White Kingdom and Black Kingdom.
Intelligent Systems, the developer behind Fire Emblem IF, explained that having 2 versions of the game is beneficial. Each game has roughly the same amount of content of Fire Emblem Awakening, and each game has its own perspective of the game's overall story.
Playing devil's advocate here, I personally don't mind the 2 versions. I mean, nobody complains about 2 version releases for the Pokemon games, but apparently the White Kingdom will be easier than the Black Kingdom, which is a bit odd, but it kind of makes sense. The casual version is the White Kingdom, while the hardcore version is the Black Kingdom. Each version is essentially its own game, with a different story and different level conditions. An interesting choice to say the least, and I'll definitely see how this works out.
There has been many complaints about the 2 version release, but we have come up with a logical conclusion on why Intelligent Systems has decided to do so.
Fire Emblem is experiencing a reinvigoration that the series has never experienced before. Fire Emblem Awakening essentially saved the series from dying out, and that was because of the casual fan base. The developers knew that there were 2 groups of Fire Emblem players, a battle-hardened hardcore group that played the entire series, and the many newcomers that were introduced by Awakening.
The 2 version system was meant to accommodate both groups. Intelligent Systems knew that they have to accommodate to the casual fan base, which prompted them to making an easier mode and an overall more casual version.
This makes Black Kingdom the game that accommodates hardcore Fire Emblem players. For example, White Kingdom will have standard conditions of victory, such as eliminating all of the enemy forces, but in Black Kingdom, there will be more advanced conditions. For example, suppressing the enemy, defending bases, and turn restrictions, conditions that are notable in Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn. This whole concept is best described by this interview by Masahiro Higuchi. From the start until Radiant Dawn, we built up the view that those games are the ideal Fire Emblem style, but with that sort of game, one problem was born. We reached the logical conclusion that it was always difficult for newcomers to pick up. In other words, Intelligent Systems wants to accommodate both the battle-hardened hardcore Fire Emblem community and of course the casual one.
Also, there's the 3rd DLC version coming out. It is said to be in the moderate side of difficulty. Moreover, the 3rd version will be more difficult than the white version, but easier than the black version.
So what is Fire Emblem IF? Fire Emblem is a turn-based strategy game hosting different units with different advantages and disadvantages. The player can customize his or her own avatar. It is the player's duty to lead a military campaign to achieve a certain goal. Whether it is to join a peace-loving Hoshido or the glory-seeking Nor is really up to player choice. Fire Emblem is experiencing an unprecedented reinvigoration. The developers of the series Intelligent Systems are left with a dilemma: to accommodate the casual fan base that has rescued the series from certain death, and also to recognize the hardcore community. In order to solve this problem, the developers made a 2-version solution. One version is akin to Fire Emblem Awakening in terms of casual accommodation, while the black version suits the battle-hardened Fire Emblem players that are used to the difficulty found in Radiant Dawn and Thracia 776.
So what else is Fire Emblem IF offering? Well, this cool 3DS faceplate is coming out, but only in Japan as of this moment. Hopefully it comes out to the West.
Also, another neat thing is that these Fire Emblem cards are coming out. Fire Emblem used to have a prior trading card series, but it was discontinued back in 2006, and apparently thanks to the recent Fire Emblem hype, the trading card series is also being reinvigorated.
Something special is happening here. Fire Emblem as a series almost died out. Now the series is looking stronger than ever. Fire Emblem Awakening sold almost 2 million copies, and the latest, Fire Emblem IF, looks very promising.
So what new information will Fire Emblem IF provide us? We are not sure, but we are sure to cover this topic as it develops. Special thanks goes to Zeshix for joining me on this video. In the near future, I'll be doing another Fire Emblem video, but on Zeshix's channel. So now that we have that out of the way, which video would you like to see next? A news video about Yooka-Laylee or a news video about Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem? Comment below on which one you would like to see.
Anyways, if you liked this video then please like, and if you really liked this video then please subscribe. Till then, I hope you have a great rest of the day, and this is the video of the day. Hello everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video. Click the link to see whether or not Metroid Wii U is coming out. Anyways, enjoy the rest of the song.